Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Marc and Nick.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How are you today, Nick?
Very well. How are you?
Fantastic. Had a great day. I think you had a great day as well. And what's even greater is that we have a guest that we've been waiting 2 months to finally have a chance to sit down and speak with, and that is Stephanie Clinise, who is a teacher for more than a decade, English and a little bit of social studies in there, in the greater Philadelphia area. And we got the chance to meet Stephanie at the FETC conference. So this is a continuation of our FETC series. That conference just was spectacular. Can't speak highly enough about all the incredible vendors, all the incredible presentations, amazing people, social networking at the highest degree, and just really a lot of nice people. And Jen Womble and her team who coordinate the FETC do a spectacular job. So we are super excited to have you on the podcast. Stephanie, welcome to State of Ed.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to keep our chat going.
We're super excited to have you here. And I'll tell you just a little bit of backstory for the folks who are watching and listening. Nick and I were going through this massive convention center with all these different vendors, products from everything that you've definitely heard of to things that you've never heard of. And it was like acres long, acres big in there. And we came across this platform called We Will Write. And there you were presenting, Stephanie. And I'm just going to tell you that your energy was magnetic. Like I could see, and Nick could see in a heartbeat, like that is an educator who was like on her game. She knows how to engage people. She knows her stuff. She knows how to keep it interesting. She knows how to teach it. And then, address questions and keep you hooked and keep you interested. So like as soon as we saw that energy and what your talents are, like we knew that this is a person that we definitely want to connect with, want to talk to, and get their insights and have you on the podcast. So thank you so much for being that person, and thank you so much for saying yes and giving us some of your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you for those kind words. I mean, we joke about with teaching that you're talking to an audience with these teenagers. I teach ninth grade, and sometimes they're like, it's a lot. I'm like, I promise you, there are people out here who are ready for this energy, guys, but maybe 7:30 in the morning is tough.
Well, for everybody that was or was not at FETC, congrats to the We Will Write people, because all these vendors may or may not have great products, but if they can't sell it, then nobody's going to come look for it. And that's what everything Mark described. I mean, you brought crowds of people to that venue with your enthusiasm, with your energy, with your talent. So credit to them if you want to talk a little bit about how you got hooked up with them. But it really was unlike any of the other pop-up spots.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Like, this is really doing a lot for my ego right now. I'm not going to lie to you. No, but it's the reason that I got to go. So I don't actually work for We Will Write or anything. I'm just a regular high school English teacher, just doing the thing. And so how did I get involved with them was kind of a funny story, and they all like it too. So it was a little bit over a year and a half ago, I was watching everybody getting all panicked, and we were all stressing out about how do we track AI use in the classroom? What's going on with all of this? And I saw in my mind's eye how everything went with cell phones, how everything went with social media, and how we really didn't have our finger on the pulse. We really couldn't have a lot of control over it within the classroom. But AI and with the computers and everything, I was like, okay, I'm getting ahead of this. I cannot be in this classroom where these kids know more about it than me. I was like, they know tons of things I don't know, but this is one I think I can do. So I started deep diving and just going online and looking up lots of different platforms. And I'd come back from my first time presenting at a conference in Pennsylvania called PETC. And it's an amazing experience. And I was just feeling the rush of that. So I got back home and started looking up all these different conferences. And I was like, oh my gosh, did everyone know that South by Southwest has an educator conference? Because I didn't. I was like, doesn't Eminem go to that? What are we doing here? Well, I'm going through their expo, and I'm like, all right, which of these platforms would be cool? Which one of these platforms or businesses or models has something to offer me as I'm just sitting out here in suburban Philadelphia area? And I stumble across, all the way at the end of the alphabet there, We Will Write. And it's hey, gamified writing. I'm like, what is this? And then I come to find out they had launched out of their beta at South by Southwest. And they're a company, it's like a really small company, and they're based out of Norway, and they are just the nicest people. So I see this and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I already do creative writing. I can gamify it. It's ninth grade. Like, let's get some buy-in. So I roll it out, not really knowing much about it. And my students were so into it. We like posted, I put up a picture that one of the sets they already had created, put up a picture, and my students were like, wait, I only have 2.5 minutes. So they're like writing as much as they can because everybody wants to win. And they're seeing their writing go up on there with no names attached to it. So, and I was teaching a class. I had 3 sections of ninth grade. As mid-March. The kids are not having it. And like I said, 7:30 in the morning, like, you got to be ready for this. Like, I'm alive. And so and it was like dead silent and just type. I was like, what is happening? So this happens all day long. So at the end of the day, I'm just emailing their contact information, like whatever was on their website. I said, hi, like, my name is Stephanie. I love everything you guys are doing here. I want to know more about it. I'd love to share my takeaways from today. And they got back to me. And then we set up a few calls and we were going back and forth. And then they were like, listen, we'd like to stay connected. Do you want to represent us at any of these things? If you're going to do professional developments, maybe talk about how you use us. I was like, I already do that, but yeah, like, I'd love to.
Smart.
And then the new school year started this school year, and he stayed in touch, looked for different opportunities stateside for them. And then right before, like right in the, that winter time, they were saying, hey, this might be a long shot. Do you think you'd be interested in joining us? We really love the way that you talk about the platform. Would you like to come with us to Orlando for FETC? And I I was in my WhatsApp. I was like, absolutely, I would love it.
Philadelphia in January, Orlando in January. Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's like not even a question. I was like, first off, yes. And then I had to go tell my bosses. I was like, hi, I don't need anything from you. I was like, can I just leave them? No, but it ended up being like such a great experience, such a kind group of people. But I wouldn't have gone with just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I wanted to go to FETC, but to spend that time standing and talking to strangers and like being like, hey, do you want to come see how I use this really cool platform? That wasn't something I'd ever done before. It was just an opportunity to be able to share about a platform that had such a positive and significant impact on writing in my classroom. So to get a chance to spread that message was just in line with everything that I want to do as a teacher. Yeah, I want to work in the classroom and support kids, but with the way that education has been with rolling out all these new things, and we can't keep up with what's new and tech-wise, and how do we keep this new generation interested and engaged? And I want to show other teachers that it is still possible. There are platforms that are working with us, and not everything is just trying to draw their attention out of the classroom. So I'm always looking for ways to make this job like a touch more fun, a touch more sustainable, and this platform did both. So I was all in.
Right.
I could tell you that we got back from Orlando on a Wednesday, and I walked past Nick's classroom on Thursday, and We Will Write was on the television. And I'm not even being facetious. He just jumped.
Amazing.
He jumped right into it. Yeah. I could speak from experience. Just this week, we had a teacher, English teacher actually, who was going on a field trip, and we try to minimize like the coverage situation. I'm an AP, so I love field trips, but at the same time, I'm also trying to figure out like how we're going to cover the field trip when the teacher goes. So myself and the English chairperson decided to cover classes for this teacher. And I designed, because I knew that you were coming on to the podcast and we were going to talk to you, and I wanted to be able to speak from my own personal experience, not just secondhand or thirdhand. So I designed my first We Will Write and went into the classroom. I shared it with the chairperson. We kind of both collaborated on it. And it was magical. It was absolutely magical. So easy to use. The kids got into it instantly. I mean, I picked a really fun topic. It was a debate between like TikTok and YouTube. It didn't matter. They were 7th graders. I just wanted to get them to write, make an argument, support it with evidence like that. We were just going for the skills there, and I just picked the low-hanging fruit, if you will. And from the jump, they were all in the whole period, and it went until literally the bell, because you could set the timers and it just magically knows exactly how it's going to get you to the end of the period. And it did. And I debriefed the kids really quickly before they left, and they absolutely loved it. But funny, one of the kids said, the only thing I didn't like was that we were writing. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, that's fair.
I love, doing marathons. I just don't like running. Like, what?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm like, that's fine. And as he walked out, I'm like, but you just wrote for 43 minutes, so I'll take it.
And what's funny too is, right, like, they're like, well, I spent 43 minutes. I'm like, I spent 43 minutes. And I was like, oh, I spent 43 minutes. And they're like, well, I spent 43 minutes. And I'm like, I spent 43 minutes. So I'll take it. I'll take it. it's like so much work to do all the writing. And I'm like, okay, but then they're not even just writing. They then have to read their peers' work.
Exactly.
And I was like, you're not even just seeing what you're capable of in such a quick moment. You're seeing, like, with some of these prompts, like you said, this debate. Now they might see what somebody on their team who they don't know, there's no names attached to anything, when the kids are looking at it. And it's like, oh, I never thought about it like that, especially when you're looking at it in that debate presence. They do. They have so many fun ones. And usually I roll it out with a fun one. But I also tailor them to content. And that's like when we were talking about social studies at FETC and out here. I went to so I was first certified as a social studies teacher, but my career has taken so many turns, and they're all so amazing and so exciting. And now it turns out I'll be teaching 9th grade English, and that's really what most of my career has been. So I was looking around at the other departments and I said, what are some projects that require a lot of brainstorming? So I got one from like the game design classroom. I got one from the 10th grade, world history classroom. I was able to build one for biology Keystone Prep, and whatever state you're in, it's your state test. Pennsylvania's is the Keystones. What I did was I took I made each into like a different piece of the project. So it's like the first 2.5 minutes was your initial brainstorm. So let me use it as a real example of what I've done in my classroom. So we do a Romeo and Juliet podcast. Then it's obviously like a very fake podcast, and the students are meant to write their own script. And I've been doing some version of this basically the entire time I've been teaching Romeo and Juliet, because to know me is to know that I come in at this book of like, nah, this is 2 kids who lied to everybody, and in less than 5 days, 6 people died. That is a fact. Now, are the parents also terrible? Yes, everybody in this story has terrible ideas, and nobody stops them.
So you're not a romantic is what I'm hearing.
Listen, that's not romance, okay? Those are children, and they are desperate, okay? So this is what I do this to my students every year. We just started reading the book, and they're like, why are you telling us all this? I was like, oh, I'm not. Shakespeare tells you this on the first page of the book. I was like, okay, and it's still super popular. But I was like, all we're going to do in here is track everyone's poor choice and how we could have avoided it. So we joke about that, and then when we get to the end, it's like, all right, man, who holds the most blame? Who holds the most blame for this? So I pit them. Like I made the first one is, do you blame Romeo more or Juliet more, and why? And they're like, let's go. Like, I know whose fault it is. Then for the next challenge, I made one, right? And it said, was it more the nurse's fault, like the advisor to Juliet, or the friar's fault, which technically like both of their advisor, but I definitely put him in the camp of Romeo and terrible decisions, right?
And plus, he's an adult. He should be able to provide better guidance.
If you would like me to go on this tangent, I will do it. Like I go off on the friar.
Explore the space, Stephanie.
I go off on the friar. He's like the dumbest adult in that whole. Okay, the adult with the worst guidance possible for teenagers, in my opinion. So then I have the kids decide who they're, and then we've already got a list on the board of everybody that we could blame. Living, dead, that we also bring up fate and destiny and like, all of this. And then they pull one for that third challenge of you can pick somebody you already wrote about and deep dive, or you can pick somebody else from the board and write a brand new one. So not only now have I gotten them to brainstorm the entire outline with not actual text evidence, but now they know what scenes they're going to go look for. Right. So in like 35 minutes, because I do not give them the amount of time, like I'm like, shorten it up, kids, like we got things to do. And so they've now, at the end of this, have decided almost definitively, every student is like, I know who I'm blaming. It's Mercutio's fault, or it's Tybalt's fault, and I need to go to the fight scene right now. I need 3 quotes. I know what they are. And they're like ready to go. They're energized about it. It's not, and it used to be like, sometimes brainstorming was pulling teeth. I'm sitting next to kids and I'm like, well, who do you think did it? And they're like, I don't know. But now they were forced to make a decision. They don't have to stick with the decision. But that initial piece, that launch into writing, I just couldn't believe that it worked there. And like I said, I was sold right away. But when I realized I could put content into it at the high school level, I was like, clearly this is something that maybe that's not who they were gearing towards. But I explained to them, I was like, no, you need to be, because this is awesome. And so now I'm excited. We just did a project called The Power of Your Voice, and we were all done the project this time. And I just gave them 3 prompts where they just had to think about the stuff that they wrote and reorganize it. And then they were ready to do their final drafts, because they then had once more quickly distilled the information. And I was like, when we look at platforms and we look at tools, no matter what the tool is, look at how it can serve you and serve your needs. And so this one was it just so happened that it served so many particular needs that I had, gaps that needed to be filled in my classroom.
You want
You want
this
me to
one,
go?
Nick? Or you want, yeah,
Sorry.
we both have questions, so go for
Well,
it,
I
Nick.
don't have I have more of a comment and then of course I guess question, but educational technology or educational resources in general. We know the market is massive. I mean, it's ridiculous how much money is out there. So people are selling their products like crazy. So you have to develop your product and you have to sell the product. If you don't have dynamic, passionate teachers like yourself, it takes 2 minutes to realize how great, involved in that process, then the product is just not going to be worthwhile. So they have to be involved, I think, in both parts, the development of it, so they know what's actually going to work and what great teachers like yourself are going to want to use, and you have to be able to sell it. And too many of these products, they don't understand that. So the We Will Write people get it, but it's credit to you because, again, you are able to put it into perspective of what this platform can do for teachers. So great selling point.
Well, and it's with anything that I'm going to use. I was like, if I'm going to spend my very limited teacher time on something, it needs to be valuable, not just to me, but for the goals of our school, whether it's my district, your district, anyone's district. There's no point to bringing a product that we're going to spend a ton of time learning and that we can't see how it fits whatever the school's current, what the mission is, what your mission statement is, and what your goals are for that year. I know that what my school's goals are. I know that we are looking to increase student engagement, achievement, but at the root of it all, student learning. And I'm like, students, there's all these different, platitudes and axioms, whatever it is that people say about, teaching is a work of art. And it's about all these different things. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I do owe stakeholders something. And I'm going to achieve that with support. I'm not going to achieve it no matter how fun I am and how goofy I am. Yeah, that might be a selling point to some, but not to everybody. And so I need real tools that will support me. And so if I'm going to do something like this, I do ask, okay, if I'm going to meet a new platform, which I am constantly doing because I'm like, hi, what do you have? I'm so interested. I ask first, what sets you apart from everybody else? What is it that your platform does that somebody else isn't doing? I didn't have to ask, We Will Write that, which is hilarious, but that's all they do. They're not looking to take over every piece of the puzzle. They said, This is what we do, and we're going to do it well, and we're going to do it with teachers and students in mind. And sometimes when people will talk to them and say hey, have you thought about doing this? And they're like, yeah, we thought about it. No, that's not our need. That's not the purpose we serve. Student learning is at the root of all of it. And if I didn't think that a platform, an ed tech tool, a book, a worksheet, whatever it is going to serve that, I'm not going to spend my time on it. And so that's what we owe the stakeholders who are the children, not just their families. I don't want them to dread walking into my classroom. I can't play a game all day, every day. But they got to know that it's a part of it, that there's more to the story, just like there is in real life. So.
But the game is just a part of the narrative that you've established, which is that every day when they walk into your room, they're going to be challenged in some capacity.
Yeah, and the challenge can sometimes be, how much can you write about the character you want to blame in 2.5 minutes? And sometimes, going on a rant, they can do that.
But Stephanie, this is what I want to dive into before. Your approach is led with or through the lens of getting the student engaged first. You're attacking Romeo and Juliet from the idea that the adults blew an opportunity to take care of these kids, blew an opportunity to act in a responsible way, and there's blame to be assigned. So you are already tapping into elements of drama, not Shakespeare drama that they can understand in the context of their own lived experience. You're leading with that. Very often when ELA teachers are trained, they are trained to lead with ELA. Where does Shakespeare use symbolism? Where does Shakespeare use metaphor? Where does Shakespeare use iambic pentameter? And I have no doubt that you are teaching all of those things, but those are infused. Once the train is going, then you can start to add on and challenge them with all these additional language arts components. But very often, from my experience, and this has been the source of a lot of debates and discussions with people in the ELA world, if you were not framing learning objectives around those moments that we can really sink our teeth into, like who's to blame, which is a fantastic question. Now I need to know, well, who are the people who I can even choose from? Okay, here they are. And then what did they even do? Well, now you have to find out. And so it just keeps opening up doors and taking us deeper and deeper and deeper into the text. And ultimately, they wind up exactly where you want them to be in the first place. But you don't have to go through the difficulty of pulling teeth and sitting there saying, come on, I mean, like, give me one thing. And it's just like, it makes the lesson just seem never ending for everybody, the teacher and the student. So you're trying to circumvent all of that by leading with something that's compelling and interesting, whether you're using this tool, that tool, or just a piece of chalk, if you're old enough to remember chalk, or a marker, or an Apple Pencil, or whatever the writing implement of choice is.
Well, so I've got a brand new tool that's in my classroom, my social studies friends, that you're going to just love so much.
Go for it.
This is very low tech. I was trying to explain, we were reading A Retrieved Reformation, which was written by O. Henry in 1903. Now, if you're a 14, 15-year-old in 2026, that means
riveting.
Nothing.
Oh, I was going to say nothing.
Right? Riveting stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, he was a bank robber, but then he decided not to be. They're like, cool. I'm like, no, guys, stay with me. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, hold on. Do you guys know what 1903? Do you know anything about 1903? I was like, just talk to your neighbors, anything you got. So now I am grabbing my computer and I'm doing some Googling, right? And then I'm always like telling them on this timeline. We'll get to that. So I was like, all right, guys, what do people dress like? So now I'm like putting things up on the screen so they can see a picture of what somebody was wearing. And I said, well, when was I said, how do people get around? They're like cars. I was like, absolutely not in 1903. I said, the idea of the Transcontinental Railroad is relatively new. I said, that's only about however many decades prior to that. So because of that, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm like so big on always explaining content and context have to go hand in hand. There is no purpose in reading Romeo and Juliet if the kids cannot connect to it, if there is no context for it in their lives, which is why, who do we blame? What is a safe adult? What does a good friend do for you when you get dumped by some girl who doesn't even show up in the play, right? What does all that look like? How do you connect back to that? And I'm always talking about this context. And I was like, these kids have no clue what 1903 means and what a bank vault is. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I built a 2 whiteboard long timeline starting from the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869 up until 1989, the birth of Taylor Swift. That is only because, right? I think that's when she was born because that's the name of her album. But I was laughing because that's where I ran out of space. I ran out of space on my whiteboards at 1989. I said, that's where we're going to stop. Okay, guys, because I kept trying to explain to them about Animal Farm last semester. And I was like, wait, this is I said, I know it's an allegory about the Russian Revolution, and it was written in the 1950s, and they used a farm to explain it, and none of you have grown up on a farm. I was like, but don't worry. My mom's from Iowa, and she did grow up on a farm, so I got you. Like, I got you with the context. But there was just this disconnect at all times, and I was like, guys, we're talking about communism. We're talking about the 1950s. I know you covered this in social studies. And I was like, they can't see it. There's no visual for any of this anymore. We're doing everything on these computers. And I have a massive timeline that starts with the Transcontinental Railroad in the United States. All U.S. events are in like purple. All other country events are in green, because then we read a short story about the Irish Civil War. And they're like, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, me neither, brother. Let's learn together. Like, let's go. So I've got those on there. And then I started plotting where our books landed on that timeline. So they could see it. And then I started plotting other things, like the year Ms. Clinise has entered the chat. I also put when the Berlin Wall was first erected, when U.S. troops entered Vietnam, when JFK was assassinated, when MLK was assassinated. And they're like, all this was happening? And then I added some other books. So they were like, all this was going on. And like 5 years after Dr. Seuss wrote Green Eggs and Ham, I said, yep.
That's
I
amazing.
said the same guy who wrote Lamb to the Slaughter, which, spoiler alert, everyone, Mary Maloney kills her husband with a frozen leg of lamb, right? That's written by Roald Dahl, the same guy who, what is it, like 10, 20 years later, writes Charlie and the Chocolate
Factory.
So I have that on the timeline, and they're like, wait, that guy? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, what kind of dark guy thinks of like kids falling into chocolate rivers? It's like this guy. And I was like, look at the 10 years leading up to Lamb to the Slaughter. Look at the 10 years leading up to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I said, all art, literature, music, everything reflects the lived experience of the time. But if you don't understand what that lived experience is, there's no context, there's no connection to the content. So I have been having so much fun with this. My students are like, you're not very cool. I'm like, no, I know. Like, I'm excited. I'll be like, did you guys find anything else we should add to it? They're like, okay. And like, it ends on 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. The same year, the first episode of The Simpsons aired.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, all this was happening? I said, yeah, man, all of this informs what we like to do and what people are writing and singing and making art about. So you just gave me my little soapbox to get on, but this is where I think that connection comes. It doesn't matter how good I am at teaching embedding quotes if they don't care what these characters are saying. And if at the end of the play they are like, I hate Romeo, I'm like, you are having feelings about this character, which means you are invested.
Exactly.
So who do you hate in this play? Like,
Exactly.
who do you hate the most?
But were you trained to think this way, or is this just you? I'm dying to know.
I don't know. I mean, like, life trains you, right? Like, I don't know if it's just me. I am always thinking a lot about a lot of things all the time at the same time. But I truly believe, one of my best friends said too, she was like, I can't decide if I want to be a fly on the wall in your brain or if it would be just too much. I was like,
too dangerous.
Get on in there. It's just, I just see the connections and I love what I do. And I love that I get to like read books and talk about historical events all day long. And then occasionally find new technology that supports this process. And so I want the kids to be excited about it. And it doesn't come from something else. It's got to come from that connection. And when we think about connection and rapport with kids, it doesn't mean that like student and I are best friends connected. It means that I'm helping them find a connection. And that connection doesn't have to be with me. It can be with the fact that like, I didn't know these two things were happening at the same time. I'm like, well, you got to experience something to write something that dark.
Right. So you become the moderator of learning in addition to just the teacher of learning.
I often say I facilitate your learning. Like, I am no longer the keeper of the keys. Like, I said this to somebody the other day. I was like, I don't hold the knowledge here. The knowledge is out there. You all have, every kid has a phone, a computer, whatever. They can get to it. But just having the information isn't the same as engaging and connecting with it. And that's what I have felt my role as a teacher has been for most of my career. Make them care about it or make them, not make them, but invite them into that conversation about why bother? Why bother doing this? Why does it matter? And they are at the root of that. And I connect the context to the content and I bring them into every conversation. I tell them why we're reading something, why I put the timeline on the board, why I felt the need to put the Simpsons up there next to the Berlin. They know the process because I think it's now about process, not product. It's about contextualizing what we're doing. Sorry.
Preach.
Oh, no.
That's what it feels like I'm doing.
Preach.
But we have fun. Like, the kids are a part of it. It does sound sometimes preachy, but I'm not just standing there being like, well, I do wave my
No,
arm.
I'm not saying, no, that's a high compliment. That's a high compliment.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that they're going to meet us there. And we give them that chance. We give them that opportunity. And if they can see why it matters and how they can connect to it, it's been the difference in my classroom. It's been the difference with behavior, with why rules are in place, why Miss Clinise doesn't let anyone sit in the hallway ever. It's not about you, it's about me. Like, why I don't want your phones out. Like, but we talk about it. I give them the time and I value that opinion. And I think so many teachers do this. We don't always have a platform to be able to share about that with one another.
So the answer to that question is, Mark, she was not trained for this. This is who she is. So you know. This is
not
clearly.
classically
She's bringing
trained.
that to the table. She's bringing that to the table.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think like this. Talk to my parents.
No, well, it's the ultimate compliment from Mark, but it doesn't mean that people can't be trained to do what you're.
Of course.
They may not be able to do it as well as you, but they can approach it that way if they're trained properly.
And I think that's very true. And I think they can do it just as well. It comes with your personality, the way you're going to share it out. I'm going to share it out this way because I am always authentically myself, which is going to be loud and with big arms and like getting overly excited about it. But there are teachers who have a much more calming presence who can come in the room and still make these connections. As soon as they learn that way of making connections with it, you bring yourself into it. And that's the buy-in.
But your emphasis is making it compelling. You're not just thinking about like what chapter do I have to teach today and what happens in the chapter. You're taking it that next step. What's the lens, the most interesting way in to this chapter? Is it about lying? Is it about deception? Is it about murder? Is it about letting a friend down? Like, you're finding all these angles that make sense to students that they can connect with instantly and posing that problem to them and then attaching all of your curriculum and everything that you want to teach onto it. That's just a brilliant way of constructing the lesson.
I tell them all the time, thank you so much. I tell them all the time, I was like, I'm sneaking so much information in here, guys. I was like, you can pay attention or not, but you're learning.
Yeah. Put the peas in the mashed potatoes. I mean, what parent ever shouted up, like, come down for peas, and any child ever, like, walked down the stairs? Like, that's never happened, and it never will happen. But if you say cheesy mashed potatoes, you have a fighting chance of getting some people to the kitchen table.
There you go.
You mentioned AI a few times now. AI is obviously the topic on everybody's mind. There are a significant number of people who are optimistic, and then there are also a significant number of people who are understandably concerned. Some fear that AI is going to lead to students writing less, thinking less, doing less, cheating more. What's your perspective on that, and what do you say to folks who are, maybe genuinely and rightfully concerned that this tool makes cheating and makes kind of checking out way too easy?
So I've been so lucky in my career, especially this year, to have the opportunities that I've had. And my school is like really supportive and amazing. And I've actually been able to lead PDs, professional development within my school, within my district. But then I've also been able to step out into a couple other schools in the area. And I sent out a survey in advance. I did one a couple weeks ago, and there were so many concerns. I asked, like, what are your main concerns? All the typicals. And then so I came in and I was like, we got to talk about this elephant in the room. And so we talked a little bit about AI, and then we talked about concerns. At the end of the conversation, we came back to the idea that students who weren't cheating before are not going to suddenly start cheating because it's easier. I have not seen an increase in cheating in my classroom. I have seen an increase in, use of the tech. I saw a kid, okay, let's do for example, I had a kid with ChatGPT open the other day. I said, what are you doing, man? I said, we have platforms that the school has paid for. Like, what are you doing? But I have to provide them access to that. This one they can get to on their own. And I said, show me what you were doing. And he was like, so sweet. He was like, I wanted it to check my grammar. I was like, and I looked, and that's literally all he did. He copy and pasted his final one in and fixed the proofreading and grammar. I said, brilliant. Next time I'll make sure that I open up our safe version with the guardrails in place so that AI isn't telling you anything that I can't track and model. And he was like, okay, thanks. I was like, stop being so scared. Just ask me. I will give you guys the tools you need. They're like, will you? Like, you're not kind of yelling. No, thanks for sharing this with me. I see that. And so that's what I do try and impress upon teachers. If a kid wasn't cheating before, they're not going to suddenly start. What you're seeing too is that kids are seeing what's available to them. And if we're not out there teaching them anything about it, and I'm not saying whose responsibility that is, you know what I mean? It's just, I took it on in my classroom because I wanted to be ahead of it personally. That was like a Steph problem. But the message comes back to, like, your kids who weren't cheating aren't starting. I think that the fears are legitimate. I think it's if we didn't question it, it would be more concerning if you weren't worried about the implications of it. But just being scared of something won't make it go away. And all of the data, all the articles I've read, and I keep them in my presentations with like updated links and everything like that to show us the job market. When my current freshmen graduate, they will be not just hoping that they know how to use AI. The expectation is that they will be versed in how it works. And yes, with every technological leap or industrial leap, we see job shifts. But it's not going to replace everything that humans do. It's not going to replace our thinking unless we give it that power. And the only way we can give something power like that is by pretending and ignoring the problem. We address it head on. We look at it. We tell the students in high school. I'm not talking about little kids or anything. But in high school, I'm like, hey, do you think that I can't tell when ChatGPT wrote something? And so but I'm also open about this. And I make it very clear to my students, like, hey, I used AI to make these questions. I had to fix a few. What do you guys think? Or I'll say, hey, I used, Magic School or whatever. And I had it generate a bunch of sentence starters, like 10 different varieties of sentence starters for each paragraph of their most recent research paper. And I said to them, use them or lose them. I don't care. I said, it's really up to you. But I wanted to provide that for you because the biggest concern is, where do I start and all that? And I said, so use these ones that I found for you that I put together and I think they're okay. I don't know what ChatGPT is going to tell you. This is a classroom, so let's not use these other sources that I really can't vet. And we talk about that. And does it solve everything? No, they're kids. But I think it helps to acknowledge it, talk about it, and definitely tell people that they're not wrong for being afraid of it, or not afraid, but like, having concerns. But then instead, look at how it can serve us. And I think, and how it can serve the students and their learning. And that's what should be at the root of it. And also, these kids are going to graduate. And we are the educators. No matter what we feel about it, there will be a level of, not culpability, what's the word I'm thinking of? There's going to be a level of like blame on us. They're going to be like, well, why didn't you prepare them? Right? It,
Right.
it
Well,
does come back.
that's always the case.
Yeah,
It's always
what didn't you do that you could have done? And there's always going to be something, but it's it won't be they won't be like, Miss Clinise hid it from me. Like that's not going to be the answer.
AI obviously is such a broad, covers so much, but just specifically to the writing aspect. Like I related to, I remember once they started putting sample AP essays online, you couldn't assign an essay at home anymore because the kid would we were spending more time tracking which online essay they used. Now teachers are kind of feeling the same thing with AI. It's like, well, we don't want to give them something to write that they can just use AI for. But do you use AI in the sense of like having kids write something first on their own and then using AI to figure out ways to improve it? Is that something that you would use in your classroom?
Yes, and.
Okay.
So I have, like I said, I know I said earlier about process over product. I told them, I was like, I no longer care that, like, it's not that I no longer care. It's just, I know you're going to be able to turn in something that makes sense, but I want you to find your voice.
That's not your point of emphasis. You've shifted your point of
Yeah, the
emphasis.
point of emphasis is like, we can get this anywhere, just like we can get information anywhere. But what's the point of being in this room and talking about it with me? And I'm like, because you don't understand what good research looks like yet. You don't understand necessarily about a reliable article. And so when we go to do anything with AI, I always remind them, I said, who made the internet? Who puts everything on the internet? And they're like, people. And I said, and people are frequently wrong and biased. Therefore, a platform that just pulls information from other people can have bias and be wrong. So let's not blindly trust it. I said, I use it as a tool for even teaching critical thinking. So yes, in the writing process, I will have them rough draft. I'll have them brainstorm. Like we did this project. I wish I had it with me. I had these manila folders and they had their names on them and they just stay in my classroom. I was like, you're not doing this research paper without me because I need to vet your articles. I need to see everything that you're doing. So they would have these check-in points throughout the process where they had to show me the articles that they printed off with like the citation page. I grew up in a time where they handed me a book and I had to memorize MLA citations. And like now that like nobody's doing that. They're just like, oh, it generates it online. You don't need to memorize these things anymore. My students, I'm going on a tangent, but my students could not understand. They're like, well, then how did you get your information for your papers? I was like, I got it from books at the library. They're like, but what about like the encyclopedia? I said, I would go to the encyclopedia. They're like, that's online. I was like, it wasn't. I was like, I'd be writing about the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1974 encyclopedia. So we talk a lot about it. And then as they go through the process, they're showing me the research that they found first. Then they're showing me, like it started with brainstorming topics. Then it starts with ideas for a thesis. They find their research. They're going through all these. And then I'm like, okay, like you can go on, this tool that I've opened up for you. So we use Magic School at my district. And anytime a student they don't even log into it. I have to open up a room and provide them with a tool they're allowed to use. And then I can see every single thing that they do. Everything.
That's great.
It's amazing. I'm like, oh, you asked it to fix this and it said no. Then also like I can put those guardrails in. So that's where it's important. My friend Hunter, who I actually met through the Magic School stuff, says I think it is what he said was, if you're teaching a kid to swim, do you throw them in the ocean or in the pool? You got to have guardrails. You got to have a safety piece. So that's where you use the educational AI. It's training wheels. Right? We start them down that process of like, you can only trust it to a point. So
it even tells you not to trust it, right? Every time you do
the first thing it says is, hey, I might be lying to you and I'm biased. And the kids are like, perfect.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
They're like, great. So like, what? I'm like, guys, like you can't trust anything you get from the internet. That didn't change with AI. You still need to critically consider it. So like, do I use it for the writing part? Absolutely. So they would like do their little outline and show me the quotes that they picked from their articles that they wanted to use. Then they could type it up into a platform that I have control over. So I can see that first version. So we use another one called Class Companion, and that is specifically for writing feedback. So what happens is they go through that process. They type up their 5-paragraph research, what have you, and they're given immediate feedback of like, here are your spelling mistakes. Here is like, got 3 out of 5 on your analysis of those quotes. And now the kids are a little bit competitive by accident with themselves, trying to increase their score every time.
There it
like,
is.
Sure.
Right.
They're able to be like like it would be the process would be students coming up and saying, can you look at my paragraph? Is it any good? And I'm like, you got to have a question.
It closes the feedback loop and
Well,
the feedback cycle
it
immensely.
shortens it to a degree. So I'm still now sitting with kids, even more than I was before, but now they're coming up to me and saying, I can't fix my thesis. It keeps telling me I'm missing something. Will you look at it? And now I'm like,
Right.
yeah.
But you're looking at iteration 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
You're not looking at iteration 1.
And it's a great opportunity for me to remind them to be like, and this is why I'm the person who puts a grade on it. This is feedback. This is round 1. And I put that one, I said, unlimited. I said, you can get as much feedback from that machine as you want.
Love it.
I don't care. And then they'll come up to me and be like, and like they can dispute it on that one. And I love it. Like I don't have them turn it in there so much, but I like watching. And then they'd still have to print off a final draft. And they were like very pleased with themselves with their folder of research and drafts and like all their work.
Wonderful.
And I just think that like we needed to see it, like the timeline. You got to see it. And then you got to see your work in a folder and like feel the heft. So they would do that. And it wasn't that it lightened my workload. It meant that my workload was more directed. Kids are coming up and saying, I really think I did a good job here. And this platform is telling me I'm not doing it right. And so we look at it together and I go, listen, I think that that's great. I think you've done wonderful work. I'm very impressed with it. Or I'll be like, you know what? You forgot to mention XYZ. Or they'll bring it up and be like, it's telling me I didn't use a quote and I very clearly did. And I'm like, that's because you cannot blindly trust AI. Watch it. I said, think critically. If it gives you feedback and you disagree, tell me. I said, I want to see it every time that you disagree. So now I'm teaching them that critical thinking about something coming from AI in the process. And like, when do you use it in writing? Not your first draft, not even your final draft. Make sure it sounds like you at the end. So very long answer. We do use it and it's limited.
No, and I appreciate that very much. I guess just on a base level, like my concern, and I'm more of an AI optimist.
Yeah.
But my concern, yeah, I am. But my concern is I don't want AI to do to writing what the calculator did to math. And I fought with people about the calculator forever, and a lot of people fought me back. And I firmly believe that I was right. I am horrified at the lack of ability to just do basic math in your head. And it's because they just did it into the calculator. And I feel like writing teaches you to think. So at some point, kids need to struggle with the ability to put words together into sentences and then paragraphs. But AI can then help like anything else. You keep talking about guardrails, but also like safety nets and things like that. And that's my concern about using it, particularly with the writing. I want it to be used in a way that's going to like show kids how they can show growth themselves, learn from their mistakes, but they have to do the base level stuff at the beginning.
Well, and so absolutely. And I agree with that. And that's how this looked in this process was I had to see what you created and you weren't allowed to work on it without me around. Because at 14 and 15 years old, I love to throw around that phrase, what's developmentally appropriate. And I was like, finding an easy way out it's a human experience. People do try and find the quickest way out. And right. I've tried to explain to them, and demonstrate to them that the quickest way, just because it looks like the shortest path doesn't actually mean it's going to be your easiest path. And so that is part of it. But I forced out every step along the way. They did have to struggle. They did have to write a thesis. They did have to write a rough draft, either hand wrote the rough draft or they had to hand write the rough draft into the outline that we had created. And then with the platform that I was talking about, it won't give them any guidance through the first writing process. And I limit the amount of guidance it will give them. So that,
yeah, by the way, I loved everything you did.
Yeah, but what you're saying is so fair. It's so legitimate.
Yeah. But I'm very curious about what your district, you keep talking about that they don't have full access to the,
yes, the students don't have blind, unfettered access to the tools that we offer in that platform.
And how is your district able to do that? Are they paying for a different program?
We pay for a platform. We pay as an enterprise district with Magic School.
Magic School. Okay.
Yes.
Do they have access to ChatGPT? Are you a Chromebook school? Are you
We're a Microsoft school. So they have access
Copilot.
to the World Wide Web, man.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I said, education and the world is not caught up to what's happening. And so I can't sit here and pretend like I can solve all of it. But what I can do is mitigate some of it and emphasize the dangers of falling into that trap in my classroom with my kiddos.
Let me use this as an opportunity to kind of bring our conversation to a close. You have so much energy, you're fearless, you are willing to just dive in, and then like you trust the fact that you're going to be able to find your way back out, and you do time and time again. But not everybody shares that type of energy, spirit, and like daringness. What advice could you give an educator in terms of like 2 or 3 entry points to like just dip their toe into the AI water, and despite all their fears, all their concerns and everything else, and know that they're going to be able to kind of survive that experience? Like, what would be your advice in terms of helping that teacher take that first step into the AI journey?
So I think that the best way to consider AI and whether or not you're going to use it, anything like that, is to look at our job or anything really in your life that takes up a lot of time and energy with very little return on investment of your time. What part of that would you like to offload a little bit? Look at it from that lens. And if you're like, oh, whatever that is, what am I trying to say? Whatever it is, if you are like, listen, trying to type up my lesson plans in this really formal way that I have to submit to my principal every week. Okay, well, you could maybe use this to build a template for it, or help it generate it into something like you've got the idea. You're going in and saying, we're doing this Power of Your Voice project. This is what we're doing. It's going to take 3 days, break it into a lesson plan written for submission. All it's doing in that case would be like taking a little of the tedium off your plate, but it's not replacing anything else. Or maybe you're at home and you don't want to take it into work yet. You can tell any of these platforms 4 ingredients in your fridge and say, I need to make dinner with these. See what it comes up with. And like try it with something so lightweight and see how you feel about that. Because you have to know how you're using it and how it reacts to you before you try and put it in front of kids. So that would be the number one thing. Try it out with something that you need help with. I can speak to the food one because I'm a lot of things, but an exceptional cook is not one of them.
That's amazing. So Stephanie, if teachers want to find you, or other AI tech companies want to bring you to their conferences so you can teach the world how to use their products, where can people find you?
I'm pretty easy to find. Every social media platform is at Mrs. Clinise, MRSCLINISE. And I'm pretty much the only person besides my husband and my children in this world with that last name, so you'll likely find me. But yeah, I am open to talking to people. I talk to people at the conferences that I get to go to. I connect with people online and social media. Sometimes I'm posting about the different AI platforms and what I just used it for and how a person could do that. And sometimes I am going on a rant about Romeo and Juliet. It's really in an up and down, but I love connecting with people. I stay in touch with people from conferences, as evidenced by this conversation. I just want to share that message that this job can still rule. Like, teaching rocks, being a teacher is the best. And I want to help people find that. So if you find that you're like kind of struggling with any of it, you're not sure what to do, feel free to reach out. Like, I'm just hanging out. So I'm happy to share.
Oh my God.
This was a wonderful conversation. I am so jealous and envious of your students.
Oh.
I can't believe they get to be in your presence every day. And when you have some spare time, I think you should create a master class on how to teach every work of Shakespeare. That's what I think you should be doing. You should have your own master class series on every work of Shakespeare, because I was not a Shakespeare fan in high school, and I was like captivated and riveted by the way you were teaching it. So now I just got to do all of them.
The plot twist is I hated Shakespeare all through high school.
You did? Oh, wow.
I did not care for it. And I was like, I am now going to spend the rest of my life teaching it in a way that a kid might like.
I believe that wholeheartedly, because every great person needs a worthy rival. And for you, the worthy rival was not being able to be motivated and inspired by Shakespeare. So you were not being able to sit back and be defeated in any way, shape, or form, because I could tell that already about you. You fired back by finding the most intriguing and interesting and compelling ways to teach Shakespeare as a way to prove that it can be done. That's my
I had exceptional teachers.
Psychology 101.
Yeah, listen, I had exceptional teachers, and that's why I find myself in the classroom today, is because I knew I wanted to share forward what had been given to me. And that's where it is. But I was like, Dad, I don't care who you are. I was like, in 2002, I did not care about Shakespeare.
Wow. Oh,
Oh,
great
well, guys,
job.
thank you
Amazing.
so much. This has been
Thank
so
you
fun.
so much.
This was absolutely worth the wait and did not disappoint whatsoever. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today on State of Ed.
Thank you.